How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Sector 6, and today we're going to be talking about the Kalm Flashback in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and whether or not it could end up being a little bit different to how we remember, or how Cloud remembers. Remembered? I give up. Anyway, I'm going to look at it and we're going to see if it's going to change, and then we're going to talk about a few possibilities for how the flashback could change. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for future content. We are 23, 24 subscribers away from 1k now, so, we're getting closer and closer with each video. Join the party, push us to 1k. But that's enough of that, let's get on with it. So the first thing that we have to look at is the starting point. Will the flashback change? And I believe that the answer is a guaranteed yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that much. Let me explain. So, as we saw in Final Fantasy VII Remake, aside from all the stuff with the Whispers and Sephiroth 2 and Zack, the clearly different stuff that sets Remake on a completely different path than the OG, apart from all of that, there are still quite a substantial amount of changes we see that fall into the realms of natural expansion, new ideas that the devs have had that, they want to flesh out for areas and segments of the story, or even old ideas that they could never implement in the 90s due to technical or time constraints or whatever other restrictions that were on them in the 90s, things that they couldn't quite get into the game, but now they can. And this is something that Remake is seeming to put a pretty big focus on. So we could easily see additional scenes added into the Kalm Flashback that don't necessarily change anything or set Rebirth off on a different trajectory than the OG was on, but just flesh out the narrative of the events of Kalm 5 years ago and, give us a little bit more context and a little bit more information. Therefore, in that sense, I 100% expect the flashback to have changes. Guaranteed, no doubt in my mind. But, I suppose everybody already knows that this would be a pretty rubbish video if that was all we're going to talk about. So let's look at some of the other possibilities of stuff that could happen to the Kalm flashback. The first and most obvious one, I'd say, is something that happened all the way through Remake, and that's Sephiroth. As we've seen, this new future Sephiroth loves to mess with Cloud. He gets into him really early in Remake, and he doesn't really stop at any point until the very end, and we can assume that that's probably going to continue into Rebirth. That's something that is probably going to continue. Sephiroth's going to keep on messing with Cloud. Which then gives us a few possibilities for how Sephiroth could interfere with the Kalm flashback. Now, one of the most obvious ones is something that we saw already in the OG. When Cloud and the party are hitting the North Crater, we do see the scenes that go down in the Kalm flashback, and Sephiroth kind of injects himself and the party into it, kind of taking control of a shared memory almost. We could see something similar to that happen. So while Cloud's retelling the story to the group in the inn in Khan, Sephiroth could be in Cloud's mind, messing with him, forcing Cloud to tweak his version of events, maybe even further than they already are away from the truth, or maybe tweaking them to be more in line with the truth. Who knows, it could go either way. Depends what Sephiroth's shooting for. I would argue that he'd probably try and drag Cloud a bit closer to the truth. That'd be a guess though. But yeah, that's one of the ways that Sephiroth could easily affect the Kalm flashback. We've seen him doing it all the way through Remake, and it'd be a shock if we didn't see him doing it in Rebirth, and this would be a prime opportunity for it. So, yeah. Plus, we'll have already played Crisis Core Reunion by that point. So, this is the thing, in the OG, when, the whole deal with Cloud and his memories about what went down in Kalm and everything like that, it's a big twist. It's massive when you get to it. It is a huge story point, and we didn't know anything about it beforehand. Whereas now, they are literally releasing the game that these events happen in a year before Rebirth. So everyone's probably going to know the events. So the Kalm flashback isn't really going to be about telling us the events, because we already know them. We're going to see Cloud's version of events. People that have never played the OG are immediately going to know that he's lying. And I feel like this would be a prime opportunity for Sephiroth to step in and crank it up a little bit inside Cloud's mind. Let me know what you think about that one, because the dynamic with the flashback is different this time. Previously, when you first play Final Fantasy VII, the Kalm flashback is the truth, whereas everyone's going to know that it's not the truth. So, yeah, a little bit different. Think about that, let me know. Comments. And the next possibility that we've got for the flashback also ties into Sephiroth as well. However, this one relies a bit more on what he's already done rather than what he's going to do. This relies on the actions that he took in Remake, as far as prodding Cloud earlier than he ever did, getting into his mind, messing with him. Everything that Sephiroth does to Cloud in Remake, that is going to have a knock-on effect. And if you've seen my previous video where I talk about JENOVA, and I discuss the possibility of people who've got a weaker state of mind and are going through some sort of trauma or something like that seem to be more susceptible to JENOVA potentially, and this is why we see Zack not really caving into the JENOVA influence or anything like that. If we bring that into this, if Sephiroth messes with Cloud more and more, then Cloud's going to be more unstable, and therefore the JENOVA segments of Cloud's memory could end up becoming affected. Now, not really sure which way that goes again. Does it affect his memory to become closer to the truth, to the actual truth, or does it corrupt his memory even further and make it more outlandish and bring more lies and more falsehoods into Cloud's version of events? In this instance, actually, I would probably argue that it would mess his memory up even further. He'd potentially end up taking even more from Zack's persona that he sees. So the Zack that he knows and the Zack that he's kind of bolstered his own personality with thanks to JENOVA and everything like that. Maybe we see him lean even further into that. I think we probably see a combination of the first two. I think both of these first two are kind of, they work with each other. So Sephiroth loves to mess with Cloud. He's probably going to mess with Cloud during the flashback. But on top of that, the previous things that Sephiroth's already done to Cloud in Remake could also have a knock-on effect. And we could see Cloud getting halfway through the Kalm Flashback and just having a breakdown and not being able to continue telling the story. We could see numerous different events go down in this Kalm Flashback. It could go a few different ways at the minute. So, because like I've said, it's not there to tell us what happened in Kalm anymore. That's not its purpose anymore. Or at least that's not how it feels. I mean, know what you think about that? Has the purpose of the flashback changed due to the fact that we're going to get reunion and we're going to, new people to the franchise are going to see the events of Kalm way before they actually see Cloud's version of events of Kalm? Let me know. But now we're going to get to the big one. Well, maybe the big one. This one feels like it could be interesting. It feels like it could be an interesting one. So, as we see at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Zack survives. Which isn't the way things go down. Yeah, it's not the way things go down. This is why everyone lost the shit a fair bit about it. And understandably, people were like, whoa, and just completely confused about it. So, let's talk about this a little bit. So, Zack survives in this what seemed to be an alternate timeline. The hints are there that it's an alternate timeline, but there's no proof or guarantee of that yet. So it could be the same timeline, just in the past. It's probably in my mind, it's an alternate timeline, but let's keep going. What if Zack surviving messes with Cloud's memory? Now this potentially links into some of the previous ones a little bit, where like Cloud's memory of the events have been corrupted a little bit, so we see a more corrupted version where Cloud puts himself into more of Zack's role in the Kalm Flashback. That's a possibility, but the thing that I'm looking at leaning into here is that what if Cloud remembers Zack living at the end of the flashback rather than dying? So in the original game, the flashback kind of tapers off when Cloud and Sephiroth are facing down with each other. And that could very well be the same way it goes down. But what if Cloud remembers a little bit more? What if he remembers, yeah, Zack, this other soldier, Zack, brought me back to Midgar. What if he can remember somehow that he was brought back to Midgar after these events by a soldier called Zack? That would lean into the fact that his memory could be corrupted, Sephiroth could be messing with him and making him remember Zack potentially, but there could be something there. I genuinely feel like there could be something there, because they keep focusing on Cloud and Zack walking back to Midgar. They focus on it heavily at the end of the game. They focused on it massively in the trailer of the game. Could we then see in the flashback something similar happens? Now, if we do see something like this, that means Rebirth is going off the rails in a massive way. Because if Cloud remembers Zack, that changes everything for Cloud. Who was Zack? Oh, Zack's pretty similar to some of the things that I do. Wait a minute. Zack was a soldier first class. I'm not a soldier first class. What's going on? Help, please. And Cloud just has a full-blown mental breakdown, which is exactly what Sephiroth seems to want. That's what Sephiroth is seemingly shooting for. He seems to be shooting for getting Cloud as unstable as possible. And what better way to make Cloud as unstable as possible than to make him remember the person who he's based a reasonable amount of this mercenary persona that he's enacting since the Kalm Flashback. Well, since everything went down when Zack brought him back to Midgar. He's been filling that role and playing that role of Zack because that was the type of person that he wanted to be. The JENOVA cells inside him have made him take those memories that Zack shared with him and take the little things, the little quirks that every person has, the little mannerisms that everybody has. JENOVA's kind of helped Cloud absorb all of that and make it his own. If Sephiroth then comes along and goes, oh yeah, it's this guy, that breaks Cloud pretty instantly. Now, whether or not that's something they could do, I don't know. Like I say, it definitely changed the trajectory of Rebirth going forwards, because at that point, like, I don't know what goes on. Does Cloud fully remember Zack and then his persona drops really early? What goes down then? Does he remember that Zack's alive and tell Aerith that Zack's alive? So Aerith then's like, oh my god, I've got to find Zack, and goes looking for him. It could change the party dynamic and the way the game plays out in a pretty substantial manner. So I think it's more likely, like, we're going to wrap this one up now, but I think it's more likely that it's a combination of the first two things that I said. So Sephiroth getting involved and messing with Cloud's memory, and the things that Sephiroth has already done in Remake leading to an altered flashback. I think they're the two most likely things. And obviously we've got the natural expansion as well that we're going to see. We're definitely going to see some natural expansion, so it is going to be different. It's just how different is it going to be? That's the question. And the Zack one, like, I think it'd be compelling. I think it'd be really good. It'd be a massive curveball for people who have played the OG like myself, you know, those of us who have been about since the 90s and stuff like that, who know the story. It'd be a massive curveball for us, because we'd be going into the flashback expecting it to pan out a certain way, like, yeah, we've seen this millions of times, they're not going to change this, and then bam, they change it. So this, if their intent is to go completely off the rails with this, the last option is a pretty solid shout. But I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop rambling on about this. Like I say, I think it's the first two, probably. Sephiroth getting involved seems the most likely. But I can't rule out this potential. Has Cloud's memory changed due to what went down with the singularity at the end of Remake? And what kind of ramifications would that have going forwards? I want to throw that out there to the rest of you. Let me know what you think about this. It's a big question. It's one that I've been thinking about for a while. It's one that we're going to get answers to reasonably soon as well. Like, we're probably, what, a year and a bit away from getting answers to this. But yeah, that's going to be it from me. Let me know. Do you think the flashback's going to change? Which of these possibilities do you think is the most likely? Do you agree with any of them? Have you got your own possibilities? Let me know. Drop it in the comments below. Don't forget again, like and sub massively helps. But more importantly than anything, have a great day.